Hey everybody, Mike Phillips here. Today we're going to do a short video on machining on a lathe as well as aluminum TIG welding. So I had a customer come in with a brand new aluminum radiator. He needed an AN fitting welded to the bottom of the tank. I told him no problem, I probably have the fitting in stock. If not, I can order one in quickly. That's where the problem was presented and why this became a good video idea. So it turns out I did not have any weld-on AN fittings in stock. I've got tons and tons of fittings, which I'll show you in a minute here, but I was all out of new weld-on fittings, and all my suppliers, because of COVID and everything else, they're all out of stock. Shipping's taking forever. I'm not going to wait. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a fitting out of my used bin that's close and machine it to be what we need. So when you build custom cars for a living and you're always hunting for tools and equipment, you're constantly meeting people who used to do this stuff in the past, mainly guys that used to do similar things with sheet metal, fabrication, and AN fittings in the aircraft industry all the way back to World War II. A lot of these guys are dying off. Many of them are still around and they're willing to sell their stuff off. They're at that point in their life where they're ready to start letting go of some things. So at one point I bought an entire old aircraft guy out, and let me show you what I got from him. So this filing cabinet here, it's actually an index card cabinet from like a card catalog. This sucker is full. All these drawers are completely full of AN fittings. This guy used to work for the military. Back during the war and after the war, he worked with NASA and a couple real high-end top dogs in rocket engineering. This is all used stuff from back in the NASA days and the United States government that he took home with him, collected over the years, and stuff that he brought home. I bought this entire cabinet out, and I can almost always find what I need or make what I need out of this cabinet. So when I was buying stuff from this guy, he was telling me all kinds of really cool old stories, and that's one of the really nice things about meeting these old guys, is learning all the history of what they did, how they did it. And this guy actually worked side by side personally with German rocket engineer von Braun. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but go ahead and look him up. Basically, he was a German scientist slash rocket engineer that we took from Germany after the war, as well as a whole bunch of other physicists and scientists and engineers that we got out of Germany after the war. They came to work for us, and they basically developed what we know today as modern day rocket science, and NASA and all this stuff all came from these guys. This guy worked with him side by side. So let me show you what I pulled out of the cabinet. So this is a adapter, but most importantly is it's a -6 on this side. That's what I'm looking for, something with a -6 and with a big hex, because we're going to machine this down. And one that's fairly thick right here is also going to be helpful. And then also a -6 cap. We're going to use this to help chuck this thing in the lathe without damaging these threads. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this fitting, and on the side that we don't want, this bigger side, which I think is like a -10, we're going to chuck that side in the lathe. We don't care about these threads, so we can chuck the jaws right on there, squeeze down, and then we're going to make this hex round. You take that bigger size, put it right in here. I'm leaving it off the chuck. I'm not burying this all the way in because I need to cut this down. So I'm going to leave it out just a little bit, making sure that this is perfectly flat. But there's nothing precision about what we're doing with this job. So eyeballing it is going to be close enough. Let's go ahead and get it spinning. come in. We're just going to start making this hex round. We're getting kind of close to our side, so I'm going to do a nice little smoothing cut here. See where we're at. Let's take a final cut here. Let's clean this up. And I'm going to come in and just face this off a hair. So there's a little burr right here. I'm going to just face this off a little bit. I'll come in, touch off. Clean that up a little bit. So now we're left with a -6 and a nice round collar. Still clamped on the other side, which is a -10. Let's go ahead and take this out of the chuck, and I'll show you how I'm going to clamp the other side. So to clamp the side, what we're using without damaging these threads, and we can cut this side off, and then we can machine a little shoulder in here. We're going to use a -6 cap, and we're just going to screw a -6 cap on there. When we chuck this back in the lathe, that hex makes a real easy thing to put a 3-jaw on. And the direction that the lathe is spinning, which is coming down towards me, as we machine on here, it's just going to make it tighter in the cap, and it's not going to try to unthread it and pull it out of there. Let's go ahead and put in a cutoff parting tool. Let's go ahead and cut that off of there. Put our cutter back in. Let's go ahead and face this off. So we've got that parted off. So now the last thing we need to do is I like to put a little stepped collar right here. What that stepped collar does is it allows you to drill a hole in the tank and have that piece kind of sit inside the thickness of the tank, but sit on a ledge at the same time. So you don't want to make it so that you drill your hole the same size as your weld bungs, then it's going to fall into the tank when you're trying to weld it. So make a ledge that can drill through, it can sit in the tank, and you can weld that outside perimeter. Let's go ahead and cut that ledge now. Okay. So there's the ledge. Let's go ahead and pull that out of there. I'll show you what we made. Okay, so there it is. Let's go ahead and get this cap off there, show you the end product. Alright, so let's take the cap off. It ended up being driven pretty tight from having it in a lathe like that. I needed to use a wrench to get it off of there. So here's what we got. So this is the one that we just made on film. Real quick and dirty. We took 0 measurements. All we need is a generic ledge. You could make this a specific size, just smaller than a common drill bit size. Leave the ledge just a little bigger. The one we're using for the job is non-anodized part. This is the one that we're putting on the car. This is a junk one that we made for the video. I'll probably throw this in the bin. It might end up on something someday, but it'll probably sit in that bin forever. So as you can see, there was no reason for me to wait days and days and possibly weeks to buy a weld fitting for this job. Grab a generic fitting out of the bin, throw it in a lathe, 5 minutes later, boom, done. We have our fitting. We can start welding it on the radiator. So if you have a small lathe and a collection of random fittings, or something that has the part you need on half, machine the other half off and make it what you're looking for. Get the job done. There's no sense in waiting around. Who knows how long at this point with COVID and shipping delays, material shortages. We need this job out of here. It's a quick, easy job. We just want to get it moving forward, get the job out the door. So let's go ahead and get this welded up. So here is the radiator the customer brought in. He also brought us this hose, and he wants on the bottom tank, he circled it, he wants a -6 in that location for this hose to go on. So I grabbed a digital caliper. Let's see what size I generically machined that ledge to, because I didn't even measure it, I just cut a ledge. Let's see what drill bit size we're going to need for this. So we've got our caliper, and we are 0.631. So basically, we are a hair over 5/8, which is 0.625. I'm going to go grab a 5/8 drill bit, and we're going to use a step bit to drill through this thin aluminum tank. We're going to work our way up to 5/8, see how this fits. It's not a very deep ledge, so we might even use that step bit to just start cutting the next size hole. So it basically cuts a little bit of a taper. And this will probably drop right in place until that sits nice and flush in the tank. Then we get the welder fired up and TIG weld this in. So anytime you're going to drill a hole through a piece of metal, you should always center punch the material first. My choice for center punch is these spring-loaded ones. And it's not the ones you push on until they pop. This is actually a spring. I like these for a couple reasons. One, they don't break. The ones you push on until they pop, those things always break, they always fall apart. You're constantly retightening the end, they come out of adjustment. These spring ones are sweet. They do not break. There's nothing to break. It is a spring and 2 different size pointed ends. The main reason I like these is because I can set how strong of a dimple I make. This is a hollow aluminum tank. If you had one of those ones you push on until they pop, they're way too powerful. You push on it until it pops, not only are you going to leave a mark, but you're going to dent the entire tank. You're going to cave a whole area in. If you're laying out an aluminum panel, if you just want to leave a witness mark for like a body line or something you're going to set in later, you can use a scribe and put a little scratch to your paper pattern. You can use those pop center punches, but they leave way too deep of a mark. If you're using one like this, you can just pull up just a little tiny bit, leave a little tiny faint mark. Where you're working on thick steel, you can crank this thing up, let it fly, and put a nice deep mark on some heavy steel. Alright, so the customer left us a circle here on his tank where he wants it. Let's take a generic measurement, make sure he's even in the middle. I'm just going to use these calipers. Let's see how wide this tank is. This tank is 2 inches wide, so if we go to the 1 inch, see if I can get that on camera for you. Generically about 1 inch. Come off the edge, both sides. We're coming up on an angle, so it's not going to be right in the middle. So what you do is you come up, leave a scratch, come up, leave a scratch. Now we have 2 lines on here. Just split the difference. It's close enough to being in the middle. It's just over 1 inch. Let's go down to 1/2 inch. Again, this is all just eyeballing it. This doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. So that's about our center mark. Yep, we're looking pretty good. So let's put a little, hear how light I tap that? So a little tiny tap. You can always go back and make it a little deeper if you need to. Looking down through this fitting, it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and drill a 1/8 inch pilot. Okay. So we've got an 1/8 inch pilot. We're pretty close to his drawing. If I set this on there and look down through with that centered up, you can see we're pretty much right on his Sharpie mark anyway. So anytime you're drilling through something thin, or if you're drilling through plastic, you don't want to use a standard 2-flute drill bit. It will catch and tear the material. If it's plastic, you'll probably crack it. The best drill bit for something like that, if you don't need a precision hole, is a unibit or a step bit. Unibit is a brand name, so these are very friendly for thin materials and plastics, and even like plexiglass, things like that. They'll make a nice clean hole without just shattering your part into multiple pieces. Alright, so we got our pilot hole. I'll do my best to keep as many of the chips out of there as possible, but it should be pretty easy to blow this out when we're done. Okay, we need to go larger, but I'm going to stop there and see where we're at. Okay, it's not going to fit yet. According to the numbers on the bit, the next one is 5/8. Okay, there's my chuck comes loose. So that one there should be 5/8. And ooh, it just barely doesn't fit in there. It's trying to. Alright, so we started the next size, but we didn't finish it. Gives us a little bit of a tapered hole, and that fits right in there. So this sits right in there, and it sits down nice and flush. Alright, so let's try to blow out any chips that may have come in here. I'm going to start by putting the air nozzle in the tube that's opposite of this and try to just blow it out that way. Okay, so I actually saw a couple little tiny pieces come out. And you can see in this tank really well through here. And if there was anything in there, I'd watch it slide past the window. I can see the whole bottom of the tank. If there's anything in there, if I went like this, it would slide this way. And if I went like that, I'd watch it slide by to land back in this corner. There's nothing in there. It's 100% clean. When I first put the air on this side, a couple little tiny pieces did come out. If there was anything left in there, if it's small, it is aluminum. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll just float around. It's not going to hurt the water pump. It's just soft aluminum. There's much worse things floating around in your cooling system, but you really want to do your best to make sure you get it all out. But don't panic that there might be like some tiny little piece that you can't get out, and you're going to lose sleep over it. Don't worry about that. It's not going to do anything. Okay, so let's get this thing prepped and ready to weld. So the most important thing to TIG welding aluminum is cleanliness. So we're going to want to clean this with a stainless steel wire brush, and one that's specifically for aluminum TIG welding. So you take your brushes and you label them. This one says aluminum on it, and this will never touch anything other than clean aluminum. And by clean aluminum, I mean fresh, raw, never in service before aluminum. There's other brushes I have for brushing aluminum that's not like disgusting, but it's been in service. It's been contaminated with things other than just its natural oxides from sitting on the shelf as a raw product. So we're going to clean this up with the stainless steel brush, get it nice and clean, and then we're going to acetone it. So let's clean the whole area real well. Now if this was previously in service, I have a different brush I use to do the first scrub, then we'll acetone it, and I'll probably scrub it again with that brush and acetone it again. At that point, it's clean enough to use this brush. When these start to get worn out, just replace them or downgrade this to the dirty aluminum brush. You don't want to cross-contaminate your brushes. Especially with aluminum, you will embed little particles of steel within the aluminum because it's so soft. You'll contaminate your weld and have all kinds of issues. Alright, so let's acetone this now. Clean that up, and you want to keep doing this until this towel comes back clean. Okay, that should be good enough. Now we got to do the same thing with all these edges. Now this was just machined, so it's about as clean as you're going to get. So we're just going to wipe it with acetone. And set her on there. So one real common thing a lot of people forget when aluminum TIG welding is brand new fresh filler rod right out of the pack is filthy. You have to clean it. You have to clean it well. Watch how dirty this is. This came out of a sealed pack. Okay, the rag's clean. Clean it and clean it well. Look at all the dirt. If you've ever TIG welded aluminum and you didn't do that, and your weld came out really porous or was fighting you, I guarantee it's because you didn't clean your filler rod off. You have to clean it. Super, super important. I'm not going to go through all the welder setups and all that type of stuff. Check my channel for other videos specifically for just how to TIG weld aluminum or how to do AC TIG welding. Things such as that. I'll have lots of videos specific on the process, how to set up your machine, how to clean the materials, really detailed videos on specifically how to TIG weld aluminum. So for this job, we're not going to make this video an extra hour long. We've got our parts cleaned, they're fitting, we've got our rod cleaned. Anytime you're welding an AC TIG, have at least one glove on. I never wear gloves when I weld, but you need at least a glove on your dipping hand. Otherwise, you will get electrocuted. So I get one glove. There's AC current flying around. It's constantly looking for a path. And when you go to dip, it'll go through your arm. Especially if you're leaning on the metal table that you're welding on. Alright, so I got a tack weld on one side, I'm going to go ahead and tack the other. Anytime you can, always shift your part to a comfortable working position. Okay, getting those initial tacks is always a little time consuming because you got to get that material to get up to temperature and both sides to be molten before you make your dip. Otherwise the rod's just going to pull back or stick to one side or try to stick onto your tungsten. Aluminum dissipates heat so well that it takes a couple extra seconds to get it up to temperature. Let's go ahead and burn her in. We go from one side of the tack to the other. Reposition. Move that apart. Always get yourself in a comfortable position when possible. Taper off slow so we don't crater it. Alright, let's take a look at how we did. So it is welded. Let me put the zoom lens on this thing because anytime you get close with the GoPro, it gets blurry. Let's get the zoom lens on here. And let me show you what this weld looks like. Now you can get a little closer without it being super blurry. So there she is. She is welded up. See how blurry it gets when you back away? Let's take that back off. Alright, so I hope you really enjoyed watching this video. Quick little aluminum weld, a little bit of lathe work, nothing precision by any means. We didn't measure anything. We just threw it in the lathe, roughed it out, machined it, welded it in, job's done. -6 on the bottom of the radiator. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that bell so you get notifications whenever we post a new video. Thanks for watching.